Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
My wife loves when I DJ our car rides, but overages get in the way of my groove.
Don't worry. You got this with Total Wireless. Right now, get 50% more data when you bring your number to any qualifying service plan starting at $35. All in the nation's best 4G LTE network.
Wiki, 50% more?
Now go find that perfect DJ name.
New York. Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Ends January 2nd, 2019. $35 plans and up. Excludes ports from TracFone Wireless Inc. brands. Terms at TotalWireless.com.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. And this is part of the Aquarian Radio Network, and today is an episode of the show Experiencers Network. We have our very special co-host, Reverend John Polk, with our special guest, Ed Baker, and I am Janet Kira Lessin. And we also have Ron, and I'm sorry I forgot your name, but we'll get your last name in a moment here. And I want to tell you, well, we have a very, very exciting show. We're going to talk about extraterrestrials and exopolitics and politics and Ed's run for the presidency, his campaign 2016, and all the issues. And it's starting to rain, so I hope we keep our connection. But if things fall apart, John, you can carry on and finish the show in case I lose my electric. But we're pretty good for now.
Okay, sounds
John,
good.
take it
Yes.
away and tell us a little bit more about today's show, what you have in mind.
Okay, our featured guest is presidential candidate Ed Baker, and Ed filed with the FEC to run in the 2016 presidential election. Ed, he's not a member of any political party and is very serious about being an option to consider, supporting the fact that he can definitely win. Ed lives in Portland, Oregon, and is a lifelong Oregonian. He worked in a call center and retail management position. Ed is a sports fan and coached Babe Ruth baseball for 13 years. And Ed is a very passionate individual, and I had the pleasure of meeting Ed and Ron Sharfie at the Experiencer Speak 4 conference in Portland, Maine. And real quick, Ed, do you want to talk about your journey from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and all the stops in between?
Absolutely, and I really appreciate you guys having me on the show again. I was on September 11th for the special show that was dedicated to the anniversary of that, and I appreciate being back on. So, yeah, I went from Portland. I'm sorry?
I said welcome. We're glad to have you back.
Oh, thank you very much, Janet. So yeah, we went from I went from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and it was actually on Greyhound to attend this Experiencer Speak 4 event in Portland, Maine. It was a 2-week trip that I took. I spent 6 days in Portland, Maine, and over those 4 days each way on the bus, I went through about 15 states. And it was very brief stops in each state, but 20 minutes here, an hour there, 4 hours here. The bottom line is that I was able to meet a lot of people on the Greyhound, at the Greyhound stations, and then within those cities, and that was great. It was well worth being able to do that, and I'm thankful for the organizers of the event in Maine for helping make it so that I could get there, taking really good care of me once I got there. And, I'm really looking forward to going again next year to that.
Are you there?
And, yeah, we all had a great time, and that's where I got to meet Ed Baker, presidential candidate, for the first time, and Ron Sharfie, also from New Jersey, who's a lifelong experiencer as well. Ron, tell us about what got you to the conference in August of this year.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Sharfie. I've been on this call before, and I just want to thank you again for allowing me to be on again. What led me to this show, this conference, well, since I was a lifelong experiencer, I'd never been to an experience like that before in my life, and I went to see the people that I can connect to, and all those different experiences, all those different stories. It's relatively in relation to mine, and it's pretty cool, actually. I couldn't believe, seeing so many people there alike and had all those experiences. It was really cool, to hear everybody, what they saw, and just hear all their stories. It was really awesome.
It was a good time, and didn't you feel like it was almost a sense of family, being around people that you could talk to about, your innermost secrets that you didn't necessarily tell people at work about, or maybe even other people close to you?
Exactly. That's exactly. It was like a counseling moment without actually being in a setting like that. It was more, it was phenomenal. I mean, it was breathtaking at times. Coming across people that had similar experiences than you, and just talking, your mouth just opens up wider and wider because you're like in awe. Like, really, that happened to you? And it's just like awesome.
It was, and you end up forging some relationships that could potentially, last a lifetime. I think it's very important for all of us to stay in contact with each other, even if it's just through social networks or, what have you. I think it's very important for us to all keep open lines of communication between us and share experiences and go on shows just like Aquarian Radio. And Janet, I know that you've got a conference coming up here soon.
Yes, in Sacramento next weekend. It is the UFOCon 2016 Experiencers event. The UFOCon in the Bay Area has been running for, probably 15, going on 20 years in different formats. And this is an event that's produced by Lorian Fenton, who's really taking off and working in this experiencer field along with the UFO field and the conspiracy field. And she's right now attending a conference on not the Kennedy assassination. It's Oswald. It's called the Oswald Conference. So they're looking at what happened to Oswald and how he got framed. So I just saw her site on that, and then she's going to be zooming back on Monday and putting on this Experiencers event, which is next weekend. And I am going to be presenting kind of my premiere presentation. I've been putting together this incredible PowerPoint presentation. As you know, I'm an experiencer. I've had experiences back to the crib. I've had experiences with all kinds of species. I've been to a council meeting with over 100,000 different entities, and I'm very involved in the experiencers movement and exopolitics. And then my husband is a therapist, a counselor, a hypnotherapist, and he's going to be there with Barbara Lamb and let me pull this up. The third, I always forget the third person name. Hold on. Sorry about that. I apologize to you. She's a lovely lady. I've met her before. Come on. The website is ufocon.com, and it's at the Crown Plaza Hotel, Sacramento, California, October 24th and 25th, 2-day event. Laurie McDonald is the keynote. She's going to do the meditation. So they're going to have 3 different experiencer facilitators, Laurie McDonald, Barbara Lamb, and my husband, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And I work very closely with Dr. Lessin. And we'll take people deeper into their process and creating safe space for people to share and come out of the closet. And we're really excited to. Cynthia Crawford's good. I'll run down real quick. Cynthia Crawford is going to be presenting. Patronus. He's talking about the reptilians. Which is there's me, Gordon Davidson. I said Barbara Lamb. Hold on, I'm clicking through. There's me. Juliana Oka. And she was given artist gifts by the ET. Sherry Wild, Tammy Adams, she's going to talk with the angels and ET. Of course, Lori Fenton's going to do a presentation. Ralph and Marcia Ring, they're going to teach about contact. And I know Ralph worked on a spacecraft. Ruben Uriarte, he's going to talk about UFOs have no borders on Latinos. Gladys Camacho, she's going to do singing bowl workshops. There's a lot of people. There's a couple more. There's going to be a performance by Arturo Garbe, and I think that might be it. All right, I went through the whole group. Victor Camacho's experiences, and he's going to be interviewing experiencers. And Gordon Davidson. I think that's it. Okay, we're back full circle. And the venue is where it's going to be at. Let me click on that real quick. It's the Crown Plaza, Sacramento Northeast in Sacramento, California. And you can go to the UFO Con, the Experiencer event, October 24th and 25th, and pull that up. There are still tickets available, but it is limited to 200 people. So if you're going to go, I recommend you get your tickets so you don't get shut out, because you wouldn't want that to happen. Okay, back to you, John.
Okay, so as I had met Ron Sharfie and Ed Baker at the Experiencers Speak 4 conference, real quick, Ed, after the conference, you went to the retreat at Audrey Starborn Hewen's, I think it's her parents' property, north of the city. And I know that you didn't see the visitors that Ron and I actually saw. And according to Keith Andrews, who was a speaker last year at the conference and an attendee this past year, he actually got a picture of one of them, which from what I understand was a fairly impressive picture. And but he's done some research and tried to get witness accounts, and he says he has 12 and a half witnesses. But when you were at the retreat, you said that you didn't necessarily see them, but you heard other people talking about it. What exactly did you hear, and who did you hear say that they saw them or at least heard of it?
So my situation with it, and real quick, I want to mention that I'm planning on attending the conference in Sacramento as well. Laureen has set me up with a table there to be able to sit down and meet people, and I believe that I will have 5 or 7 minutes or something to address the audience as well, just as I did in Portland, Maine, which I really appreciate being able to let people that attend know that I am somebody for them to consider and that I am very passionate about disclosure. And so to answer your question, John, while I was at the conference 3,200 miles from home, I got a phone call telling me that my grandma had fallen and hit her head and was taken to the hospital. And I was sitting there all day on Saturday not even knowing if she was alive, conscious, what was going on. And so I made it through the day kind of trying to go through the motions and do what I was there to do, meet people and listen to the speakers. But as soon as the film Travis finished, I got up, and that was right towards the very end of the conference. I did not, with apologies to Travis Walton, listen to him say his words at the end there, but that's when I bolted out of the room to go up to the hotel and to call the hospital and see what was going on with Grandma. Apparently, right when I went out is the same time that the visitors had come in, so somehow I literally just missed them, passed by them or something. But what I heard once I got to the retreat, which was wonderful, by the way, probably 50-plus people that by invitation only, but, pretty much anyone that was an experiencer, or in my case, was invited because they wanted me to have the experience of being there and getting to meet these people and learn from them. It was just incredible. You talk about the family aspect. I mean, it really goes on to full display there. And in any event, they were talking about it. The people that I remember saying that they had witnessed the visitors. I believe both Audrey and Deborah Starborn. Let's see. So obviously Keith, yourself, and I know you weren't at the conference, but or I'm sorry, at the retreat. But the other person that I remember is Travis. Said that while he was speaking, he noticed them. Travis Walton, while he was speaking, noticed them in the audience. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't remember who else. I'm sure that there, like you said, Keith said 12 and a half witnesses. Trying to figure out the half part. But anyway, so I'm not sure other than that.
But you answered my question. I remember you mentioned Travis Walton before, but I didn't realize that it happened while he was speaking. That part I did not know. But I guess that information surfaced at the retreat after the fact, and I'm sure it was a magical experience. I talked to Audrey, who put together Experiencers Speak 4 conference and is the owner and founder of Starborn Support International, where a big part of what they do is they handle phone calls from experiencers that just need somebody to talk to, and they provide them with what they call a peer support, a peer supporter, another experiencer who's not necessarily there to counsel them, but more there to listen. So when I was at the conference, I was able to meet Ron Sharfie also, and Ron and I were two of the key witnesses, I would say, with the visitors after Travis was done with his question and answer session. So what happened is right before they started the new Travis DVD, which I thought was brilliant, the visitors came in and they walked up to me with money in their hand asking if they could see Travis and asking if I was the one to pay. And I'm like, no, let me find Audrey. We found Audrey, and after the fact, Audrey told me they didn't even have enough money and that they really didn't even know what kind of paper currency they even had in their hands, which was kind of funny and curious. But you figure when consciousness is more of your currency, then paper currency really didn't even mean anything to them. And then after the whole thing was over, after Travis was done in this question and answer period, the visitors came back up to me and started talking to me. And at that point, Ron came up also and was witnessing them and listening to what they were saying. And Ron, can you share with us some of the things that you can remember during that juncture of our interaction with the visitors?
Sure. Actually, I'd like to step back a bit and open up by saying that John was actually the first person to speak at the Experiencers Conference, and he actually mentioned during his speech that sometime during that time we will see something happen while he was talking. Something, and that something did happen, and it was the most. The experience was overwhelming. To see something not from this world, whether it's like a plane or something, is amazing. Did it all hit all of us at the same time? No, because when they walked in, the lights were dim. There wasn't too many people that actually noticed them. In the beginning, as things led on, and as everything started ending and stuff, that's when there's certain hints and stuff that were given away. The money thing. Exchange, yes, that gave it away too. But yet, who would have thought that being someplace else would actually come to the show, which was so amazing. And
that reminds me, when you talk about the money part, it reminds me of the different Star Trek episodes where they're trying to tell their people how to go, into another culture and deal with the money system and not look like you're out of place. And it seems like your visitors didn't quite get that down pat before they went and walked among the humans.
That's right. I mean, one of the catches is that, though, is nobody saw them how they came exactly. So nobody saw them actually come in, so they weren't caught on the camera. They're at that present spot where if they walked in through those doors, there isn't a camera there. So it was most amazing. So they must have known that, and it's just so amazing. I was actually able to witness towards the, well, I don't want to get too far into it. It's up to you, John. I can basically during our show, John. There's audio. I was one of the guys. I had a camera and I was videotaping the conference, and of all the guest speakers, when Travis was speaking, I noticed that there was an echo sound. I didn't change my position. I was in an exact spot where I've been filming all this time. I played back all my other prior videos, and this one, when Travis was talking, and these beings walked in, there was definitely a difference. I don't know if it had an effect with them exactly, but I can honestly tell you that that's when I noticed something, without actually noticing them in the beginning, that something was off. Things kind of started like slowing down. People started forgetting stuff, and it was most amazing. I can also remember the fact that once I saw these beings, I wanted to take a picture, and so did John. And every time I wanted to lift my hand up to take a picture of these beings, I forgot. And that was like play-by-play. It's like they knew that I wanted to take a picture of them. I can't explain it any better than that. I mean, I guess I can, but the show will be like 2 or 3 hours. It's mind-boggling, really.
And what did they look like?
Anything?
They looked like regular people, but they had bluish skin tone.
Yeah, two of them did.
Go ahead, John.
Two of them did, and then one was maybe 5 foot, 5 foot, bald head with real small, tight sunglasses on, and a Fu Manchu beard, kind of like the Egyptians had, that just comes out of the bottom of his chin. And then the other one looked maybe 17 or 18 years old, and he came up and talked to me, and it was very strange. I got a good look at his face, and his eyes were completely black. In other words, he had no color outside of just a big black pupil. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said, "The Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki." I'm almost like he was autistic. It was very strange. And after the fact, Ron and I talked about it, and Ron said, "I'll bet you that was a trigger mechanism to put us under, or at least put you under the alien anesthesia." I don't know. That made sense to me, because right after that time period, right after he talked to me, that's when my memory started to go also. And in talking to Keith Andrews, we mentioned earlier, I was talking to Keith the other day about this whole thing, and I said, somebody out there said, "Your skin is blue." And Keith said, "That was me." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." And he's like, "No, I said it right in front of you." I was like, "Can you see what these guys did to my mind? They put me under some kind of alien anesthesia." I remember, I think, most of what happened, but I can't be exactly sure. But with 12 witnesses, and most of which can attest to the fact that they had some kind of memory loss or losing time, there's definitely something to it. But, Ron, we're going to have to let you go here real quick. But to wrap up, tell us about that flash of light you saw as you were taking a phone call or something to that effect.
Sure. Yep. I had to leave. Well, I didn't have to leave. I actually went out in the hallway to take a phone call, and I actually wound up going to my hotel room. The quickest way for me to get to the hotel room was go through the outside doors of the hotel. instead of walking through the lobby and do all these crazy turns inside the hotel. So as I was walking out, I somehow or another something just told me just to turn to my left, and I actually had to look up on the roof, and I literally saw a flash of light, kind of like a spiral. The best way I can explain it, you ever see photos of like a black hole, how it's like spiraling, kind of like that. It's like nothing. It was a big flash of light, and then went down to like nothing, and just like disappeared. It was really awesome.
And
I didn't see them physically get into anything, but that's what I saw.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
No, it's fine. It was just literally amazing. It was mind blowing. I couldn't stay in my hotel room. I went to my hotel room for like 5 minutes, if not even that. I had to run back out because I had to. Whoever was still in the lobby, I had to like tell it to. And it was,
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And remember, right at the end, they finally left, and I think you and me were both going to follow them outside, and neither one of us, did it, but we were thinking about it. I was going to follow them outside and take pictures of them. And
right.
But Keith Andrews said right as they left, he said, "Guess what? We just talked to Pleiadians." Wow, if that didn't just smack you in the head, and I didn't know what else would.
Right.
But anyway, Ron, we appreciate you coming on tonight's show and sharing your experiences at the Experiencer Speak 4 conference in Portland, Maine, August 28th and 29th of this year. And, of course, we saw the visitors on a full moon on the 29th. And then that's where we had the privilege of meeting presidential candidate Ed Baker. So, hey, Ron, we appreciate your time with us tonight, and we'll have you on the show again in the future, all right?
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Ron.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Ron. We appreciate your report.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thanks. All right, thanks. Good night.
Okay. Well, now we're going to move on to the second part of our show. And, John, what did you have in mind where to go next?
Let's ask Ed some questions about some points that he wanted to make during tonight's show. So, Ed, I know there's a number of points of interest that you wanted to bring up, so let's start right at the top. Something I know you're very passionate about is, upon you getting elected, having a real investigation into the events of September 11th, 2001. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, and I won't take, this is one of my most passionate issues, and I won't take too much time tonight on because we had a whole really great show back on September 11th on the 14th anniversary. I'm sure a lot of your listeners heard that. But real quick, I want to mention from the last segment that my grandma is okay, that as it turned out, she was released actually by the time I went up to my room and made that call. So I didn't want to leave the listeners hanging there, what happened to Grandma, but she's certainly still recovering from that fall, and it's still an uphill battle, but she is alive and 94 years old, and so now, so that's good, and it was great hearing Ron as well, and I met so many great people out there at the conference, including Ron, and it was just wonderful. Really looking forward to the Sacramento one as well, to meet, a lot of people that certainly weren't at the other conference, being on the completely opposite coast. So as far as 9/11 goes, for me, that's one of the biggest reasons I decided to run for president. And to me, 9/11 is kind of the one that we've got to get right in order for us to move on. I don't at all believe the official story to be what happened, and our other people that will end up on your ballot as options are not going to address this. If they are asked their thoughts on 9/11, I could almost guarantee that they will either say that they believe the official story to be true, or they will do whatever they can to beat around the bush on it and not really, no pun intended there, but and they certainly will not address the reality of this situation. So what I try to encourage people to do that think I'm way out there and that the official story is pretty darn close to what happened, I encourage people to look at two things. One is the towers, how they came down. on 9/11. Most people know that the Twin Towers, World Trade Center 1 and 2 came down that day, but very few people in comparison know that a third tower, World Trade Center 7, a 47-story tower, came down that day as well. It was not hit by a plane. To me, it certainly looks like it was controlled demolition. I've talked and worked with the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth and their founder, Richard Gage, and that's certainly what they believe based on their experience in that field. And the other thing that I ask people to look at is the lack of wreckage at the Pentagon, where American Airlines Flight 77, a Boeing 757, is said to have hit. All indications are that a Boeing 757 did not hit there based on the lack of debris. And then also listening to the pilots that have flown that plane say that they could not exercise the maneuver necessary for it to hit in the manner that it did. So I try to listen to the people that are experts in their fields, architects, pilots, firefighters. There were 343 firefighters that died on 9/11. Many of them that didn't get out have had audio transmissions released saying what they were saying inside the buildings, which include that they were having all kinds of secondary explosions going off. Also, the firefighters that did make it out, listening to what they have to say. I just encourage people to keep investigating. It's 14 years later. Obviously, it was important enough to do a whole show on it on the anniversary. So I have, I think I'm in good company tonight with people that are not buying the official story. And I just want to make it clear that I'm going to be the only person on your ballot that will address this. It's not the only issue. There's 100 important issues. This is just one I get fired up about. And we lost so much freedom. So many, we went to these wars. So many people died, innocent civilians as well as our military, as well as our policemen that died on 9/11 and in the wars that came after. The loss of freedom, all the phone tapping and the TSA, Patriot Act, on and on and on. So for me, it is a big one.
I agree. That seemed to be one of the major turning points for the loss of freedom and anchoring in of this new paradigm, like David and I talked about, problem, reaction, solution, and just more excuses to enact laws which take away more and more of our freedoms that were given to us originally in the first, in the Constitution several hundred years ago. So let me look and see what questions, where should we go next? My question is about disclosure. To me, that seems to be one of the most critical issues is this release of the information that our governments have been hiding from us forever. I want to know how do you think we could come about, how this would come about, that we would, finally reveal the extraterrestrial presence and that they walk among us, and all the technologies involved with that, and including cures for diseases and green, clean technologies, and even the cure for aging. It's one of the proposed things that might happen with disclosure. What are your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, that all sounds pretty positive to me, getting that out there. Must be some reason that the people that are in power now don't want that stuff out there. Look, my thing is this. I don't have all the answers, but I certainly know that we're not addressing, things that need to be addressed. And disclosure is a big one for me, having a less secretive government. That's how I ended up at this conference to begin with in Maine, was I got in touch with somebody named Eric Mitchell, who told on Facebook, and he started talking about if I would get behind full disclosure, that there are millions of people out there that are not being represented, that are very passionate about this. And, there could very possibly be, a lot of support out there that could really help me in this election. And I didn't even know what he was talking about disclosure. Disclosure of what? And we went back and forth a couple times, and then I realized that, it was UFO related that he was talking about. Well, I've never been into the UFO thing, aside from watching some videos occasionally, curious about what the Phoenix Lights are, curious about what's out there on the, what's been filmed and what witnesses say. But, I was very indifferent. I didn't have a real strong opinion one way or the other, just curious what they were talking about. But what I found in talking to Eric was that we were very much on the same page in general with a big issue of less government secrecy. So I said, even if there's some scrutiny or even if some of my supporters, really think that this is, quote, off the reservation, as one person said, that's fine. I'm willing to take that risk by going full force with this, because the bottom line is that at the end of the day, if there was nothing there, that should be out, and we should be turning over all the documents as far as that goes anyway. If it's all military and whatever, then what does that hurt? That's a positive thing for having a less secretive government. Well, I ended up at this conference, and while being there, I certainly talked to, 100 people, heard all these wonderful stories, I shouldn't say wonderful stories, but, these people's experiences, and obviously they're very passionate about it, to make the trips that they did from literally all over the world to come to this. And by the time I left there, I had no doubt that these people had real experiences, and these weren't just military test, vehicles that they're seeing in the distance or lights in the sky or whatever, that a lot of these people have had actual real experiences, abductions, you name it. So it just makes me a little bit more comfortable to talk about it with confidence, I guess, and not try to hide behind that all I'm really concerned about is less government secrecy. I do believe in full disclosure. I've talked to a few people that were even at the conference, even presenters, that thought that would be a very dangerous thing to have, that they go so far as to think that the people wouldn't go to work the next morning, and I don't buy that. I think that people are more ready for the truth than what our government leads us to believe or would like us to believe. And if there is going to be that little bit of chaos for a while, then there will be. There certainly will when the 9/11 truth comes out. There'll be pandemonium for a couple weeks, I'm sure, if not longer. But once we hold those responsible, bring them to justice, and we start having a less secretive government, and we start bringing back some of our lost freedoms, which I think the people will demand once they find out what's really been going on, I think nothing can bring Americans together more than the truth. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I don't have the answers on exactly how that'll all be. I don't know exactly what is out there, what this will reveal. You guys know better than I do in that, but I am the only candidate, again, that will be on your ballot that will be for full disclosure of anything that would otherwise be classified, so long as it doesn't put our military or our national defense in direct danger by doing so. And I do not consider things related to the UFOs, that information being in that category. That's not what I mean by that. So that's where I'm at on it.
Ed, your turn. John, your turn.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I was going to ask you something about disclosure, but let's just kind of ride the coattails of what you were saying. How about John Podesta and the Rockefeller Initiative? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm actually not overly familiar with that or familiar at all with it. What can you tell me about that?
Oh, John Podesta used to work in government and was an advisor to the president. I forget exactly which one, and was basically saying, we need disclosure. And Janet, do you remember which President Podesta worked under? I believe he was
Let me look it up real quick here.
Anyway, and the Rockefeller.
Isn't that when Hillary went and met with Rockefeller?
Yes, that's the whole thing. That's exactly right.
Book? That's okay.
And it's interesting that Hillary is sitting on top of this information, and like you said, Ed, that's definitely not going to make her platform. I mean, I watched the Democratic debate. Did you happen to see the Democratic debate the other night? And she was all for legalizing marijuana, but, didn't mention anything, of course, about disclosure. As you said, none of them on that panel were going to, regardless. But I also believe that through U.S. presidents that we've already achieved disclosure, and it's right in front of us, and it's not being presented properly. So some points I came up with, and I've been studying this for a long time, but there's many U.S. presidents that spoke of UFOs. For example, George Washington during the Battle of Valley Forge told his troops to, hang tight. I need to go into the forest and have a moment with my higher self, and he ran into some extraterrestrials who he called the Greenskins. And this goes back to the Battle of Valley Forge. Harry Truman, in a press conference back in the late 40s, said the term flying saucers and mentioned the fact that they'd buzzed the White House. Dwight D. Eisenhower did a deal called the Greada Treaty with with one of four different factions of aliens who are competing over what to do with us, and he sided with the tall grays from the star of Betelgeuse in the Orion Nebula and wanted to trade technology for abductees. And then JFK was pushing for disclosure like a week before he was assassinated. And Jimmy Carter, when he was a governor before he became president, actually filed a UFO report when he was doing a campaign trail through Georgia as governor. And then Richard Nixon had a story where him and Jackie Gleason went to a military installation in South Florida and saw an extraterrestrial in a biochamber. And then Ronald Reagan had a couple different experiences, one of which he was on the Pacific Coast Highway going to a party with Nancy Reagan, and they were probably an hour or two late, and everybody at the party was worried about him, and this was before cell phones, and they basically arrived at the party 2 hours late and said that they had a UFO experience and lost time. And then Barack Obama, yeah, I'm serious. And then also in front of the United Nations, and this was on national television, he said something to the effect that as nations as we are, wouldn't we put aside all our petty differences if we knew that there was an alien threat? And let me ask you, is there not an alien threat already amongst us? And he said that right in front of the United Nations. It was all over international television, and I don't see why that's not plastered all over TV all the time. And then a couple years...
Hold that. Let me just address Reagan. That was plastered everywhere repeatedly. I remember when he did it, I saw it live the very first time he said it. But, so it was plastered everywhere for a while there. But I think that, and they warned him not to do it again. This is just the background story that I have on that. And he said it again. He even said it again. But I think that's why they gave him Alzheimer's, which they're able to do that. They can give you whatever they want. And because they wouldn't shut up. He wasn't going to. He was going to come out and say things. Ronnie and I share the same birthday, February 6th. So I don't agree with his politics, but he's an Aquarian like I am. And of all the presidents that are going to come out, Ronnie would probably be the one. And he did have a fascination with that because now it makes sense. He had a close encounter of a very intimate kind. He was abducted or taken and probably given the tour of the ship or something. Either he remembered it consciously or subconsciously. It doesn't matter. It affects you very deeply to your core whenever you have experiences. And so that all makes sense. Okay, go on with your list. And then just to back up one thing, and then we'll continue. Andrew Basiago, who's going to be on my show on Sunday, told us how he was back in time with Washington at Valley Forge, and he was so he had an encounter with Washington. He was told to go and have an encounter with Washington. So we'll have to have him on the show and talk about that since you're addressing that again. I didn't know they called it the Greenskins, but anyway, it appears that the presidents and their cabinets are involved in some way with this time travel system that's been going on for centuries, because my uncle on my mother's side was Gideon Wells, and Gideon Wells is the one that kind of saved basically he saved the country. I didn't know this, but my husband read several books on Gideon Wells. He said, America wouldn't exist, the United States wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Wells, because he was a strategist that saved the country. So Andy Basiago's famous picture where he's standing, he's got something in his hand, and he was at the Gettysburg Address. I don't know if you've been following that on the internet here, but Andy Basiago has a picture of himself when he was a little boy and he's back in time, and he is carrying something in his hand. Well, Andy said to me that that was a letter to Gideon Wells, and if he got in trouble when he was back in time, he was to hand that to Wells, and Wells knew what to do to help Andy get back to his own timeline. So the more we look into this, the more bizarre it gets. But continue with your list. Thank you for letting me interject that.
And there's a few more, but most recently, Barack Obama, I think within the last year or year and a half, he was on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and Jimmy Kimmel was cornering him, basically saying, you know, what about UFOs? What about UFOs? What about UFOs? And Obama basically replied and said nothing. And then, but what he said is he said, that's what they tell us to say about UFOs.
Right.
In other words, he acknowledged without saying it that they exist. But, you know, you can acknowledge something without saying anything. And then he followed it up by saying, that's what they tell us to say. And then my question is, who's they? Who's they? Is it
right.
Is it the ETs? Is it the Illuminati? You know, is it some powers that be that we can't readily identify? It's debatable. I don't know, but I just found it incredibly curious, and I love that Jimmy Kimmel did it to him on the air. You figure they probably did not rehearse that particular question, but I'm glad he caught him off guard like that. I thought it was actually pretty funny. So Ed,
and I heard that was staged, that they did that because they're trying to. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying it. I don't know what to believe. I just heard somebody's theory was that they staged to do that because they are starting to warm us up to the potential of disclosure. But that might just be wishful thinking on somebody's part, that, you know, they're hoping that we eventually get disclosure. I'm hoping we have it this year. It would be great to have it at the conference in Sacramento. But let's see. Back to you in your list, or what else do you want to say? Go ahead.
I got another alien question for Ed.
Okay.
Immigration, specifically the illegal aliens, foreign invader situation. What are your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, first of all, it was a very interesting list there, and you know, the more I learn, you know, the more there is to learn, and so I mean, I'll be very interested in looking into all those instances that you just talked about. I was really surprised your list didn't include Bill Clinton, because I've heard that he had interest certainly in the truth on that as well. As far as foreign invaders go, you know, illegal aliens, people that have entered this country illegally, I take a really strong stand on that. You know, I do think that, you know, anybody that comes here legally, that's one thing, but the people that take a shortcut and kind of jump the line on those that are waiting to enter the country illegally, you know, it's not fair to them. Let's see. So one is I believe we need to secure our border, and whether that's with a wall, with military presence, whatever's going to be the most effective manner. We also, I'm for the deportation of all that are here illegally. So those are the people who have entered illegally or overstayed a visa. So my plan for that is to have a voluntary deportation period, which might be like a 90-day period where they would turn themselves in, be fingerprinted, go through the procedure, and by doing so, it would allow them the ability to follow the rules to enter the country after a certain period of time. Maybe it's 5 years has passed. If you did not turn yourself in during the voluntary period, you would lose that privilege in the future. So, yeah, you know, it's controversial. It's a pretty strong stand, probably stronger than anyone else that will appear on your ballot. And I try to emphasize that. I've said that about a couple issues, but trying to just emphasize kind of what sets me apart from these other people that the media is going to keep telling you over and over are your choices. You do have more choices than what the media is going to keep pushing. And if we can get enough people, you know, going to edbaker2016.com and getting on board, we can compete and we can win this election. My other thing is that we need to take action against those that are employing or housing those that are here illegally. So I think that we need to have significant fines. I think we need to strip them of their business licenses. And then if necessary, if this continues to be a problem, they need to be incarcerated. We've got to, you know, stop catering to people that are breaking the law, people that are doing things wrong. We need to stop caving into their demands and catering to them while other people are doing things the right way and they're not getting anywhere.
Okay, well, I have a completely opposite opinion on that one.
That's all right.
Like the polar opposite. I know too well. I know too much. There's so many people. This economy is based on these people that have been working here, 3-4 generations now. And it's more complicated than that. You have the rights of the children that were born here, their parents or grandparents. It's just so complicated. It's a human issue. It's not a black and white political situation. I think you need to take everything case by case. You get rid of all these people. There aren't Americans standing in line wanting to do the jobs that these people are filling. We have a very spoiled, rotten, entitled population. They won't stoop that low to work the jobs that these people are filling, and they are filling a huge economic niche and they spend money here. They put it back into it. It's not like they take the money and run across the border with it. They put it back into the economy. They are doing the service. And I think we need to just look at it more closely on a case-by-case scenario. But eventually the acknowledgement is that we are one global planet. There's an artificial separation, that our economies are separate. Right now we have a global economy, and as long as we have places where we can exploit people on different parts of the planet, we're creating a slave race, a slave culture, a caste, a class of slavery. So I'd like to relook at the entire system as a global system, and how, just imagine if the extraterrestrials came here and revealed to us their society and how they operate. We're not even a level 0 civilization. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, and higher. And we're just not acting like a conscious civilized civilization the way we treat the citizens of our world. And if we start acting more globally and being supportive of people internationally and empathetic and kind and compassionate, we might ascend and become a conscious species rather than remaining, a slave-based economy where somebody somewhere is always getting exploited. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, and that's
very,
fine.
very
nobody, I don't just run on one or two issues. I could just come on the show and talk, do my research on disclosure and have that be my entire show, as I'm running on exclusively a disclosure, thing. And that's just not who I am. I believe we can address, every time I talk to someone and ask them what are the 3 most important issues to you, it's amazing. You end up with 100+ things once you talk to, 100 people. So different things are important to different people. And some things I talk about, people could not care less about. A person dying of cancer right now probably isn't, might be a lot more concerned about treatments and health care and things of that nature more than immigration or more than disclosure or maybe disclosure is what they would care about. But anyway, I'm just saying that nobody's going to agree with me on everything, and I respect that, and I'm always open to hearing other points of view and continuing to research things. My belief is that, first of all, not to sound cold about the rest of the world, but I'm more concerned as somebody running for president about what goes on within our borders. I want to take care of our people first. And by our people, I mean people that are citizens of America. And so that's where I focus on that. I think that most of those jobs would be filled. I think we're going to take care of ourselves. And as far as money not going back over the border, I'm not so sure that's the case. I'd like to see the statistics on that. I'm sure that some of that money is spent in the United States, but I'm sure that they're not paying into taxes. And I am pretty sure that quite a bit of that money is going back to their country of origin. But again, nobody's going to agree with me on everything. I do take a pretty strong stand on that one, and I do appreciate your comments on it as well.
Okay. Well, I don't necessarily want to get into a debate. I do want to point out that everybody pays taxes because they shop. And so there are taxes being paid. Even if you're on welfare, you're paying taxes because you end up buying things, which goes into the back into the system. There's taxes everywhere. You buy a driver's license, that's taxation. There's taxation everywhere. So to think of
Oregon doesn't have a sales tax, so I don't know, but I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, if you buy something online or something, whatever you're purchasing, you're putting money back in, or if you want to, whatever the licensing, that's a form of taxation and all that stuff. So he who asked the question, John, what are your opinions on this issue?
Mine? Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez. Well, I got comments. It's funny how Trump is saying that we're going to get Mexico to build and pay for the wall to keep them out. That's kind of funny. I would have to. I'd have to take a neutral stance on that. I'm more passionate about other things. My big thing is why. My biggest issue is why disclosure. Because in my opinion, disclosure came out with our founding fathers, actually. Some talking points that I'd written up for tonight's show were that Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, John Adams, John Hancock, Paul Revere, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison were our founding fathers, and were all part of the Lunar Society, which met on the full moon to discuss the plurality of worlds and other esoteric subjects, and that they did not believe in the Bible at all. They believed that, they believed that Earth was colonized by beings from other worlds, thus the term the plurality of worlds. And interestingly, how each one of them that I mentioned were all Freemasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Freemasons actually did the architecture for Washington, D.C., which is basically a 10-mile by 10-mile pentagram, or basically the Star of David, laid out in increments of 33. And it's interesting, 33 plays into Freemasonry. 33 is the name or the number of the launch pad in White Sands, New Mexico, and it's their only launch pad. And that number also permeates NASA as well. It's just very interesting. And then there's also a mystical and ethereal, spiritual, alien connotation to the number 33. But the layout of Washington, D.C. was broken down into the number 33 because it fits perfectly into an acre and it fits perfectly into a mile. And the geometry employed in creating Washington, D.C. itself was really fascinating. But I got another question for you, Ed. I know that you have no party affiliation, and I believe that it is to your advantage, but a couple questions attached to that. Why is it to your advantage to have no party affiliation? And what is happening with our two historically dominant parties, the Democrats and the Republicans? And do you feel that the American people, are starting to distrust these parties, and why?
Wow, that's a lot there. One thing that caught my ear that you just said, too, was when you kind of went into your neutral stance there on that issue before, and you said this isn't something I'm get fired up about, or however you worded it. It's not one of your big hot button issues that you're extremely passionate about. That's how I am with a lot of issues, and I encourage people. While I talk about there's 100 important issues, there's only a few that I would actually march for, or call my congressman about, or get involved and actually go out and try to raise awareness to, and really put forward that extended effort, right? So like 9/11 is one of those for me that I do on a frequent basis. So I totally understand what you're saying there, and I feel that way on a lot of issues. And I encourage people out there that if that pick your issues, and if that is what you're really passionate about, get involved, in what you're passionate about. You can't focus on everything or put your time into everything that needs attention. So I totally respect what you said there. as far as the party systems and all that goes, I really don't refer to political parties very often, or politicians by name. I would hope that people are starting to wake up to, that these two parties at the end of the day really are not serving the American people, especially at the president level. To me, it doesn't matter which party ends up as president. To me, it seems like it's rigged at the level of the primary, which is what we're watching I'm not watching, but what these debates are, to determine who comes out and wins that nomination. To me, whoever comes out of that's only going to give the voters an illusion of choice, and whichever one gets elected is going to basically serve the same agenda going forward. And it's been that way at least going back the last 20 years. Maybe it's been going on for decades more than that. But I'm convinced of that for our last 4 presidents anyway. So my advantage is that I am as serious as possible about being neutral. I am not a member of any political party. I don't use words like conservative, liberal, moderate, left-wing, right-wing to describe people when it comes to politics. Honestly, I don't know what those words mean. People say, oh, you live in this kind of state, and these people are this, and these stupid this, and this, For me, I just don't get into that. I don't label people. I look at each issue individually. I try to learn all I can about it. Just because you disagree with me on one issue that's important to you doesn't mean the next 4 important issues we're not going to be right on the same page with. And as it is right now, if you have a D or an R next to your name and you're running for president, what I hear every time you talk is I'm going to represent this group of Americans and not this group of Americans. And it continues to be this neighbor versus neighbor ongoing fight. And, so I think I have a better chance than anyone else that will be on your ballot of uniting Americans. We talked about the important issues that I'll address that I think can bring people together. But just in general, just because you disagree with me on one issue, you may agree with me on the next 4 or 5. It seems now that most people, if they don't agree with the current president on one thing, they don't agree with him on anything. And there's always going to be some people out there that just want to be negative, and you just can't win over at all. But it's too much just black and white, as you used the phrase earlier, Janet, that it's and I'm just not that way. And I think that is an advantage. The challenge, of course, is getting, recognized, getting the name out there, getting on ballots. But if we can do that, I think we've got a great chance, because I think a lot of people are fed up with career politicians and money in politics and not having someone that actually represents them. I do my best to do that. And even when we disagree, I'll listen to you. I'll try to learn all I can, and that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, let's see.
I'm not sure if there was more to the question or not. There was a lot there.
Yeah, what was it? Yeah.
No, you answered it. You answered it.
Is that the whole thing? Okay. Yeah, I'm just putting my platform up there. I'm not registering to be a part of it. I don't really believe in the political system. I think it doesn't work. I think it's all Illuminati, and it's all fixed. And if it really was a true, real election, our votes would all count, and we wouldn't have this electoral college, which I think is a bunch of crap. It needs to go somewhere else into the past and to the wayside. It's just not a fair system. And I think that extraterrestrials, when they vote on an issue, they do have a way of, and it's probably very easy to do based on our DNA. You vote on the issue, you agree, you disagree. You vote on a candidate. Everybody gets to be a candidate if you want to just have everybody written in. Some of this whole campaign stuff, it costs a fortune. To me, that's bizarre. But I am an extraterrestrial. I mean, I look at it from a different perspective, and to me, none of this makes any sense. It's rather absurd and antiquated and inefficient. But that's just me, and that's why I have this radical campaign. The peace train, get on the global peace train. Oh, imagine the global peace train campaign. That's what I call it, for John Lennon and Cat Stevens. How can we move from this reality, which is based on war and greed, lack, and competition, and it leaves out everybody, basically, except for the people at the top, and they get richer and richer and richer. Okay, back to you. John.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I may, yes, a person becoming president is not going to fix everything. Okay, if I become president, it's not going to be all, unicorns and lollipops or something. It is going to be challenging still, of course, for everybody, and especially as we come out with the truth on things, there is going to be chaos. It's in certain respects, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But at some point, we're going to have to go through that in order to move forward. I believe that if I'm elected, that a lot of good Americans are going to start getting inspired to run for local, state, and federal offices. I think right now people go, wow, that's crazy, you can't win, this is nuts. It's an embarrassment for, to my family if I'm going to go out and try to do this, whatever. They're just not, they don't believe in it. But once we start getting this attention out there and we start to actually have a chance to win this thing, I think more people are going to say, if this guy can do it, I can do it, and we'll actually get some better people out there. So I think over time, if we can make it that long, I think we'll start having better representation in these offices. I think we can then get in things like term limits and a number of other things that would be better than what we've got currently. And again, yeah, I'm not a member of any political party. I just feel I'm happy to be able to say that because I feel like too often it's us against them when you're in these political parties, that you're not united. And as far as the Electoral College goes, my understanding of the Electoral College, and some people tell me this isn't the case, but the more and more I look at it, nobody's actually produced anything for me to look at that explains it any differently, that if you win the popular vote within a state, and there's 2 states that are exceptions to this where they divide it up, but you get awarded that electoral vote. So in Oregon, I think it's 7 votes. So if somebody wins the majority of the vote in that state, you get that many electoral votes. California's 50-some, and you can go around. And once you get to 270, you win. And so that's how on election night they go through, blue state, red state, add up the numbers, and once you get to 270, you have a president. To me, that's not, I guess just because of the way I calculate numbers and I consider myself fairly strategic, I guess to me that's not that bad because being somebody that doesn't have much of a budget, I can kind of concentrate in certain states and, and work on that rather than, of course, I wouldn't try to not concentrate on a certain state or people from a certain state, but I'm just saying from the standpoint of budgeting and trying to get the word out so that you have a better chance of winning that state. In that respect, it does play into some strategy and budgeting and things like that. A few years back, I guess, George Bush won the election because he got the electoral vote, meaning that he won enough states that it added up to 270, and Al Gore actually had more popular vote. But the question then is, well, what if George Bush had, put money into, there's certain states that they call safe states. Because like Texas is always Republican, California is always Democrat. I'm sure they're not going out there if they're just convinced they're going to lose that state. They're not really putting the money into that state to try to win that. So whether it's a perfect system or not, nothing is going to be perfect in this the way it's set up right now. But it's hard to say that just because the popular vote went one way or the other, maybe if they did get rid of the Electoral College, maybe the money and the way they would have campaigned would have been different, and it still would have ended up the same result. I don't have a big problem with it as far as that part goes. But anyway, that was my thought on that. But go ahead, John. What's next?
Have you ever seen the movie Recount with Kevin Spacey?
I haven't.
You owe it to yourself
as
an American.
Tell me about it.
It shows in detail how the election was thrown towards George Bush Jr. between him and Al Gore in, of course, the state I live in, Florida. It goes through it detail by nitpicky detail. I told you, it made me never, ever, ever, never, ever, never, ever want to vote again to see how fixed the whole thing was. It really upset me deeply. But here's something else, is that, and this is very researchable, is that most presidents in the modern era were on some form of Illuminati commission, or they would have never been put in office. the one that stands out the most is the Bilderberg Commission, and another one is the Trilateral Commission. And if you're not on one of these Illuminati commissions, you don't get into office, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it. So it's and you're not part of any of those committees, are you? Or commissions?
That's correct. I am not. And what I believe is this. And again, we're you guys have done your research on those things. I've certainly done some research on the Bilderbergs and some of these things. I know that before he was president, I know our current President Obama and Hillary Clinton went off to a secret meeting, a Bilderberg meeting, and this sort of thing. So I mean, I know these things exist. I know that's real. Again, what I believe is that that's more at the level of the primary, that they're trying to get whoever it is up into that position where one or the other is going to win, whatever. And I don't think that it accounts for a third party, a non-party person getting enough attention, getting on ballots. And I believe we can defeat that system, and that's what I'm trying to do. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be doing this. It's not to try to embarrass myself or to try to get, I don't get anything out of this right now, as far as that goes. It's not like I'm being paid for my appearances or something, or anything. I'm just a guy that really means well, is doing my best. And I'm working within the system that we have, and I'm trying to address real issues. And if I'm elected, I will do that. As far as recount goes, I look forward to watching that. I did watch a documentary that I really liked. It came out later, of course, but it was from 2004, Election Day, and it was called Election Day. And I would love to have every one of my supporters find a way. I got my copy at a library, but to find a way to watch that ahead of the election, because it does talk about voter fraud. It follows around basically 6 or 8 different people on Election Day and films them, while they're at work, while they're whatever they're doing. Some of them are people that just are not going to vote. One of the people it follows around or talks about is a felon who has had his voting rights reinstated, and he ends up having a lot of difficulty voting. And ultimately, at the end of the show, it says that his vote was not counted. That it did not end up counted, but it shows different things. It shows people polling, or what would you say, campaigning or whatever, people with holding signs and so on right in front of the voting place, and the law, at least in that city, was that you couldn't campaign within 100 feet or something like that of a polling place. And it showed even right outside the door a guy standing handing out golf pencils that had etched on them, vote for so-and-so, and handing them out to people as they walked in to use as the pencil to fill out their ballot, right?
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, not to mention materials on tables, not to mention, people coming up, and you're not required to show ID, which is a whole other thing, whether that's good or bad, but the coming up and the lady at the table saying, do you have your ID, and asking people for ID. So, there's no question that there's a lot of things from polling place to polling place and things going on. Obviously, being a third-party person, we've got it from both ends, where you've got people that represent those larger parties that are there to try to, throw things in their direction. Now, I'm very concerned about the electronic tallying. I saw something that I think is worth people watching on YouTube or whatever, having to do with Ohio and the rigged electronic, election there, or whatever the counts. And it was a guy actually testifying to Congress there about having worked on a program or whatever that would throw the election in one way or another. And so my belief is that we really need to go old school on this and actually go back to pen and paper and hand tallies of the votes and having those ballots saved. It doesn't do a lot of good when someone picks them up and throws them in the garbage or something. But I think that's a better shot if you went polling place by polling place and had members of parties and whatever all there witnessing what's going on. That's what I'd like to see. Voting is so important when it comes to if you're going to have voting. I know, John, you've decided not to vote, but if people are out there and believing their votes count, we need that to be the case. And I can tell you this. I have a number of supporters who have told me I've never voted before, or I haven't voted in a long time, I wasn't going to vote again, but now I've got a candidate that I can actually talk to, a candidate that actually I believe in, and I feel good about voting, in this upcoming election. And I can tell you I didn't vote in 2012 myself, so I totally understand where people are at when they're just sick of the whole thing and not voting. But what I'll say is this: if the voting itself ends up not being the problem at the end of the day, if we can overcome that, I think that it's a disservice to the process for the people that are not voting. I don't know how to word this right, but what I'm trying to say is I think most of the people that are choosing not to vote are pretty smart people in this process as far as they really want the change. They're fed up with this two-party system being shoved down their throat. And probably if I can get the word out to these people, I'm probably someone who they would rather support than those other names that will be on their ballot. So I want to encourage people to do whatever they think is right for them. Might not get John to go out and register to vote or choose to vote, but that's fine. I never ask anyone.
Hey, if you get on the ballot, I will vote.
You all right, register early, though.
You get on the ballot.
I appreciate it, brother. But what I'm saying is I never ask anyone. I never ask anyone, who are you going to vote for, or even can you vote, or are you going to vote? So I just try to learn from people, and at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. I'm just trying to let people know that they have more options.
How do you get on the ballot? Are you going to be on the ballot? How does that work?
I sure hope so. It's a challenge. Every state has their own requirements. So basically the bottom line is every state requires that you get a certain number of petitions signed, and those have to be signed in person. It's not like online or anything like that. And so I got to get volunteers to, put in some time in each of these states. Every state has a set start and end date, so a lot of the states you can't even start doing that until a set date in 2016. My state of Oregon, my home state, I could be doing it already, but you can't start till you have a running mate officially in place, and that's been a challenge. Most states, like Oregon anyway, once you start, you have to complete your signatures within 6 months, because the ones that you get to start it, will be void after 6 months. So you got to really, kind of have a good plan. So Oregon, I need almost 18,000 signatures. Idaho's 1,000. A lot of states are like 5,000. California's 180,000. So it just depends. To be honest, Oklahoma is probably the hardest state that I can find to get on the ballot, because you need 43,000 plus signatures, and with their population as it is, it makes it challenging to come up with that. Then on top of that, you cannot, if they sign your petition and someone else is running, they can't sign both mine and theirs to get on the ballot. My thing is, look, if anybody gets 43,000 signatures, they should be on the ballot. I mean, that's ridiculous that we're working against each other as independents. So as a result, in 2012, only 2 names were on the Oklahoma presidential ballot, a Republican and a Democrat. And so to me, that's really ridiculous. Some states it's much easier than others. I'm going to do my best to get on Oklahoma's ballot. I don't want to discourage anyone from there, but the reality is that some of these states are really organized to make it difficult to get on the ballots, and really difficult, like impossible. Some states require a fee. Some are like $500 in addition to the signatures. Some have other requirements. The state of Washington, which thankfully is right above where I live, they require that you put on a convention, which is something where you have to advertise it in the paper, and you have to get at least 100 people to attend it. But I think it's good that it's in Washington as opposed to being in like Pennsylvania or Virginia, where I would have to go all the way there and try to do that. But in Washington, it's just right across the border there. So I mean, it's not that difficult. It could be actually kind of fun if we can find a way to do it really cheap and put it on. It could be a really good thing. But in any event, there's just extremely difficult challenges. The biggest thing right now is finding a running mate, and also having volunteers in each state so that when we get to that point, we can hit the ground running. When I was in Maine, I met somebody named Debbie who lives in Massachusetts and helped put on the event and is very involved with the Starborn support. and she has offered to be my Massachusetts lead for petitions, and we need 10,000 in that state, and she's very confident that we'll be able to knock that out. That and so it comes down to having really organized groups of passionate people that whether it be 3%ers or whether it be people that are just very passionate about disclosure, whatever these groups of people are, maybe a MUFON group, I don't know. I'm just saying people that go out and actually get involved in doing things and really want to do things. We need to reach groups like that and get them on board so that they'll put in some of their time helping with that.
Wow, sounds like a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah, it sure does.
And money. You need money to pay the fees and to put on the conference and all that good stuff.
And I'm working without a dime,
the system,
that is hard. Yeah.
And the system is not set up to help individuals like yourself at all, which is very unfair. Like you were saying, the state of Oklahoma, only one Republican and one Democrat. I mean, it's just not set up fairly for, you would think a system should exist so that anybody would have a fair chance at winning.
I
but
think it's
not
New Jersey.
Set up like that.
Yeah, I think New Jersey, actually, the home state of Ron there, I think if I remember right, they're one that it's set up so that the Republican Democrat appears the first two names on the ballot no matter what. So it doesn't even matter as an independent that I could have more support in that state than anyone when the time comes, but I still am not going to appear first or second choice on the ballot as you go down. And to me, I think a lot of states do it randomly or do it by alphabetical or who knows what, but in a more neutral manner. But for them to just say, oh, we're just going to put these two people at the top no matter what, what if one of these big name people that threatened to run as an independent if they didn't win the nomination, they may at the end of the day have more support than anyone as an independent, and yet their name isn't going to appear one or two. Or someone like myself that hopes to, over the next 380 plus days, raise the awareness, maybe I'll have more support, but they're still not giving me that same opportunity to be placed in a way that certainly would be more favorable. So yeah, there are a lot of games like that. The other thing too, just to throw out while this is just something so important in general, but Illinois, which is one of the really tough states because of corruption and stuff, from what I'm told by people in the know of, trying to get on ballots with different measures and stuff. But there are people from the two large parties that will contest about 50% of your signatures. So you get these signatures, and then they contest them. And so instead of needing 30,000, all of a sudden you need 50,000 or whatever. So what I was told also, and this is just for information for anyone out there that might be interested in doing a petition or something for something, that what they do is they look at the first three letters of the name when the person signs, and if they can't read those first three letters, they throw it out. It doesn't count. So a lot of people have just kind of chicken scratch signatures or whatever, and you can't really make it out. So it's a good idea, they've told me, to have the person print their name above their signature so that, because they do check every single signature. They go into their system and whatever, and they type in the name or whatever and verify them. So, so it's a lot of work, but, yep.
Amazing. What a system.
Yep.
All right. Well, what else do we want to... We've got another almost half hour, and you've got a lot of really good talking points here. Let's see. So what do you think is your chances, since you're a third party, and we have never had a third party win, well, at least not in modern times. I guess things have shifted back. Wasn't like Lincoln the first Republican to win or something like that? I don't remember my history that well. I haven't been paying attention. But anyway, what do you think are your odds of actually pulling this off?
I play a trivia game at a bar every Tuesday night, and because I mix business with pleasure, I do my online campaigning, watch a ball game and whatever. And I've yet to get a presidential history question right yet. So that's just kind of a thing there. So it's hard for me to say. So there you go. I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but it's the reality. I've yet to get a presidential one right. But what came to my mind there is I don't think George Washington. I'm not exactly sure how parties were way back then, but I don't think he was a member of any political party. I could be wrong on that, but as far as I remember, he was a very neutral person. And I think I think we're at a time right now in our country where we really need someone more like that, and I think that's a benefit for myself. Look, what are the chances? We've only had 44 presidents in history, so I mean, obviously everyone is at a extreme disadvantage and we're up against. It'd be silly for me to say, I think I'm going to win or something like that. But I'm not going to say I can't win. I definitely believe we can. What the whole thing is it's a matter of getting volunteers on board that are passionate, that will help raise awareness. So being on your show is awesome. Being a guest a couple times. I've been on some other shows, and you guys are helping me raise awareness. Somebody out there is listening to this, and maybe somebody goes, I really like his thoughts on disclosure. I really like his thoughts on this other issue. No one else is representing me. Let me get in touch with this guy, and see if I can help. And you never know where help will come from. So that's the main thing. Do we have a long way to go? We got, a very, very long way to go. We're in a lot of trouble on time because time goes fast when it comes to, it's already coming up on almost a year to the election. And I'm looking over some notes from a year ago, literally, and it's like, holy cow, I hope to have this and this and this done by now. And time just goes fast, and it's not going any slower right now. It's speeding up and getting busier and busier. So the point is I need volunteers, and in any way that people want to volunteer. It's not that you have to go out with a clipboard and be on the street and do these things. I could use help with some data entry. I could use some help with some internet research. Just sending me your top news stories from your local community, what people are fired up about, and so that I can kind of stay on top of those things. Give me a summary and unbiased. Here's what's kind of going on in my state. Those things all help, and I want to just throw it out there again, plug my website, edbaker2016.com, and that's also how you find me on social media, Twitter and Facebook, edbaker2016. I did a thing for my birthday, which was a week ago, and we did a thing where I asked my supporters to consider using my campaign logo as their profile picture, because I noticed that a lot of people out there that are strongly supportive of Bernie Sanders or Rand Paul or anyone else that's running would use their profile picture to show that. You'd have things like Cruising for Cruz, I Stand with Rand, Feel the Burn, and all these little whatevers. And I thought, well, maybe if my strong supporters would put something up, it would raise awareness. And I got, I don't know how many people, 70 or close to 100 people did that for me, and a lot of them still have those up there. So I think that's great. I really appreciate people doing that. You never know how many people those things are reaching. I'm sure it's reaching quite a few people. I would have probably had more like 500 people do it, but Facebook kept causing me trouble right around that time and kicked me off a couple times and made me have to send a copy of my photo ID to prove it's me and get me back on, and things like that.
Really?
So maybe I'm moving up in the world here, huh?
You're on somebody's radar.
So maybe we're doing better than we think.
Maybe. I have a question. What about war? What about sending our troops over into foreign countries? What's your position there?
I'm glad you asked that. My thing really, bottom line, is my number one priority is our military. It's the people of our military, active military veterans and their families. I want to make sure that each of those groups has some form of ongoing representation where, I don't know, we put together some vote in or something, some kind of committee within each of those groups and actually have their voices heard, and that we're making sure that their needs are being met. Of course, not putting them in harm's way to begin with, unless it absolutely is necessary. I'm not somebody that would go to war without having Congress, going through the legal channels of that, which I believe we haven't had a declared war since World War II. I would never do that. I believe in getting our troops out of these other countries and I think we'd be a lot better off. I think people would have a much not such a negative opinion of America. I don't know why we are somebody that can go into these countries and tell them how to live and try to change around their viewpoints. I think we've got enough problems within our own country that we're not exactly handling very well as it is. Would we want Russia or China or Japan to send in their troops and try to tell us what to do now? That's my take on it. I never served in the military. I have my dad was in Vietnam as an Air Force pilot, and I've got just the highest regard for anyone that has or anyone that will serve. I offered my running mate position to a veteran that had served 20-some years, and he would have been an outstanding running mate, but he decided that he would rather run for local office again in West Virginia because that he just feels that there's some serious issues right there at home rather than be on a national campaign. And he will help me, locally there, but he would have been a terrific person. But I just want to emphasize that is a priority. I don't want to have U.S. military, on our street corners, so I don't want to be misinterpreted on this, but I would like to get those people back home and so that they can be with their families instead of separated and in these other countries fighting for things that we're not even being honest with them about. And then also, I talked earlier about securing the border, but I care more about our what goes on within our borders. One of my examples is, let's say that a couple Marines move back onto your block there, and your kid is going down the street, and somebody tries to sell him some crack cocaine or something on the street corner. I think that our military people would take care of that pretty quickly and be able to help cut down on crime and help neighborhoods kind of come back, get stronger. And I just think that when we're so spread out, I think that's a problem. I want to get our military to a point where no one would dare screw with us, and want us to get involved in things. And if we did have to do it, I think that we should be able to go in quickly, take care of business, and get back out. And if they want to do it again, then they must want to have their 12 virgins in heaven or whatever, because it's just suicide, right? Because and that's where I'm at with it right now.
Great. I have a political joke I just found here. I'm just going to put up on the site. Hold on, let me get it. It said, oh goodness. Oh, here it comes. It said, if Hillary wins in 2016, it'll be the first time that two presidents have had sex with each other. Anyway, that was kind of cute.
I'm not sure. I hope that's true, but in any event, yeah. I saw a cartoon the other day, and it showed a grandkid talking to grandpa or whatever, who's in a wheelchair. He says something like, you've been to, naming off all these horrible wars and countries and whatever, and says, where was the worst place you've ever been? He said, the VA. And so I think that there's some truth to that. I think that we really need to look and make sure we're taking care of our veterans and our people. I don't know why we have to have programs like the Wounded Warrior Program and things like that. I'm thankful that those exist, but why are we not taking care of our own people? We're able to put them into these wars. 55,000 or something like that American troops were wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan. Again, we talked about the 9/11 situation there, but to have that many people wounded, on top of that, the suicides, on top of that, 12% that come back have PTSD. Who even knows what the numbers are for homelessness within these communities? The relationships and stuff that are really rocky because of their health. There's just a lot to it. And again, a lot of it ties back to 9/11, and I go back there a lot. But the military, I don't remember now if I said this on this interview, but when one of the things that got me to this disclosure group, I had already decided I was going, but I was doing some research before I went, and one of the videos that I found was from the National Writers Club, I believe it was, or National Press Club, I guess, and it was from 2010, and it was on YouTube, a couple-hour-long thing, and they had these 8 retired military people coming up and testifying or giving their accounts of their experiences at nuclear test sites. And they were representing 120 former military that had signed off saying that they had whatever experiences that they had at these sites. And, they were talking about crafts that had shut down, their nuclear missiles or whatever.
Right.
And so to me, that was one of the things where I could tie it in, even for those people that were like, whoa, you're really off the reservation. We liked your stance on gun owner rights, and we like your stance on immigration. We like your stance on equal rights for, gay marriage and all this stuff. But now you're talking about UFOs, and not too many people had that reaction anyway, by the way. But those that did, it's like, well, one, we all want a less secretive government, and that's what we're talking about here. And two is, what about our military people who are my top priority? We need their voices heard, and they have this concern. They're not being represented. This many people have signed off saying that they worked at these, nuclear test sites and had these experiences. Why are we not wanting to represent them? So it all ties back together, and I'm proud to be giving it my best shot.
I don't understand why we're not doing any peace talks. You would think that we could just start talking solutions and peace around the planet and stop having these wars, because the only thing that makes sense as to why we have all these wars and rumors of wars is that it's economically profitable for somebody somewhere.
Right.
On a human resource basis and living an optimal life, it makes absolutely no sense. Although,
Obama could be making more of a difference.
Well, Obama's an Illuminati agent, just like them all. You're not dealing with anybody that isn't part of the good old boys club, and they're all just part of this team. So that's the illusion, the myth. If you think you're actually going to, elect anybody from within those ranks, it's going to actually do anything different than any other president. They're all going to do the same, and they're going to get in, and, people are going to rally around, they'll elect them, and then they get in, and then they criticize them. And it's just a big game. It goes on and on and on. It's been going on since, I first started paying attention to elections back in the 60s. I was almost 62 years old, and I was, I guess my first campaign I paid attention to was Kennedy being elected when I was a very small child, and my parents were paying attention. Of course, they were Republican, but my mother was a closet supporter of Kennedy. I bet you she voted for him because, she's in the Republican family, but when they got in, she was making scrapbooks of the Kennedys, so I think she voted for them. But, that was probably the last authentic president. Ever since then, we've had these plastic artificial people that are withholding the truth. Kennedy died for it, and that story keeps coming out with all the whistleblowers. He gave his life for the truth, and, Marilyn did. I was talking to, who was I interviewing? Paul Davids, who has a brand new film called Marilyn Declassified, and so they found some documents, about who actually killed Marilyn and why, and so he made a whole movie. It's going to be at the Laughlin Star Works USA event, and at the UFO Congress in February. They're going to show the Marilyn Declassified movie. And we were sharing that's when things started to really fall apart. It started with Marilyn's murder, and she was murdered, and then Kennedy, both Kennedys, and we lost Martin Luther, and then it proceeded. We eventually lost John Lennon. So that was the hijacking of our timeline into this other reality where the best choice we have is, two sides of the same team, and we really, you can vote all you want, but I hear somebody who say, well, we're just voting for the lesser of two evils. So I would really love to see a candidate that represents my views, and I'm a peace person. I think my primary platform item is peace, truth, and reconciliation. I would like to see a basic minimum income, a basic needs economy where everybody on this planet gets their needs met, just like Alex Collier said. how is it that you human beings, Drellman said, how is it that you human beings have a planet that you charge people to live in that didn't ask to be born here? And so that has stuck in my psyche since I heard it, and I went, wow, that is one of the basic truths. We're charging people to live here, and they didn't ask to be born here. So we need a different way of meeting the needs. There's no bottom. People fall all the way down to living on the street, and then there's even no place for them on the street. So, they get kicked off of this place and that place, and they're just running around like rats trying to find someplace to be. Imagine that. Imagine you losing everything. And these people aren't lazy or stupid or dumb or retarded. There's a lot of people that have just, had bad things happen, and next thing you know, we're all 1 foot, from being on the street, if you really think about it, because something happened like the crash of the 1930s depression, and we're all out in the street. So we have just about what is it? It's 3:40 on my clock. We have 20 minutes. Do we have more to talk about? John, what do you think?
I just wanted to bash Obama before we wrapped it up.
Oh, God. Go ahead. Do what you want, but I think it's silly. But I'll tolerate it for a bit.
Well, I bash, maybe I shouldn't use that term, but how about what happened once Obamacare was put in place? So I can't attest to the whole United States, but I live in Orlando, Florida. We're a tourism-based economy. And I would say maybe 6 months to a year prior to Obamacare being put in place, what happened here locally is not all companies, but I would say right around half of the companies in this town, and especially ones that I worked for, they fired everybody and started hiring everybody back at 28 hours a week so that they didn't have full-time benefits. They weren't full-time employees. And what happened to me personally is I probably had 10 managers that I had worked for as an entertainer working in mostly resorts in and around the attraction areas. They all got fired. And I probably lost, I don't know, $40,000 in the first year that Obamacare was put in place. And the number one reason was because all of my managers got fired. And these were people with families, children, benefits, had been there for 10 or more years, and they got replaced by young kids right out of college that would work for minimum wage.
They've been doing that in Hawaii for years. Back in the 90s, they played that game. You don't hire real people.
Oh, really?
You fire them. This is a game that they do to avoid paying benefits, and it's an old game. It didn't really start with Obamacare. It might have accelerated, but yeah, a lot of the governments have been doing it. They for a while cut back, so people didn't work. There were 2 Fridays a month. They just all the state employees are, they just took 2 days a month off of everybody, and it's just a game they play. Yeah, it's horrible. I'm gonna let you talk for the next few minutes here. I've got to make a quick call, but I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'll be back. So you continue the show, John and Ed. Okay? I'll be back in a moment. There's something little thing I have to attend to. Okay.
All right. So let me finish about what I was going to say about Obama. My girlfriend, she lost all her doctors and because of Obamacare, and she lost her children's doctors. And her health care costs more money now than it did before. What are your thoughts on Obamacare, and what would you do to fix our broken health care system, Ed?
Well, you just made it sound like it's not too good. So I agree with you, and I don't know enough about it to really answer your question. It's one of those things that to me is complex. Maybe it shouldn't be. It's just over my head a bit at this point. I need to learn a lot more about it, and I'm always happy to say I don't know when I don't know. I try not to just make stuff up, but I have some serious concerns about it. I don't like the things that you just said there across the board. Everything you just said there is bad. I just don't know what damage is done now because it's been in place, and where we go now from there. Well, what I will say is this: Janet brought up about homelessness and how close people are to that. I myself was homeless for 14 months, and I overcame that with a lot of help. And I can certainly tell you that up and down the streets, including right by where I live, like literally a block over, there are just homeless people everywhere. I mean, sleeping on the street any night of the year, whether it's December, February, July. It's a huge, huge problem in America. And I certainly want to try to address that, and I, again, don't have all the answers, but I want to find people that are professionals in mental health and in, obviously part of it's economy, part of it's creating more opportunities. I think a lot of these people need help with overcoming addictions. My case was a gambling addiction. Some people have substance abuse problems. Some people have mental health issues that are not being addressed. In a lot of cases, I shouldn't say a lot, I don't know if that's the right word, but people caregive for a loved one and are doing it for money or not, and their loved one dies, their mom, their dad, their grandma, and all of a sudden they're without a place to live. And here they are grieving, and their only source of income is gone, and these things kind of take place. And I would have said when I was a teenager, 19, 20, that I would never be homeless, that would just never happen to me because I was making decent money, I had friends, I had family, there just was no reason to think that I would ever be homeless. And, and I can certainly say that the majority of people are probably closer to being homeless than they once realized. And I think now a lot of people realize just how close they are. And the other thing, too, that came up earlier was about Kennedy being assassinated, and about you and Janet both brought up, that he was trying to put out there the truth about things or find out the truth or whatever the case was, and that very likely is what led to his being assassinated. And I certainly believe that the CIA, was behind that, and that this whole thing with the Oswald and all that was obviously just a story that they fed us. But the bottom line is I would not run for president if I had immediate family, if I had a wife, if I had children, and my parents have passed on. I do have people I love and people that love me, of course, and so it's not entirely without risk to others by doing this. But I'm somebody that is very serious about attacking real issues, and if they put a gun to my head and say, you're going to forget about disclosure, you're going to forget about 9/11, you're not going to go after the Mexican mafia or the cartels that are addicting our kids to heroin and crack cocaine, pull the trigger because I am going to see this to the end one way or the other. And that's where I'm at. I'm not trying to act like a tough guy, but I'm saying that at the end of the day, I don't know that there's going to be another candidate out there that is as serious about trying to tackle real issues and trying to get America back, to be in the greatest country in the world. So that's where I'm at. I appreciate you guys. I don't know how much time I have left, but I just want to emphasize, I really appreciate Janet and yourself, John, for, giving me this forum again tonight and talking about all these really important issues. Nobody out there is going to agree with me on everything, but, if I got you on a couple of the things that you're really passionate about, please keep in mind the big picture. And maybe I am the best option for you if you choose to vote on Election Day.
All right. Hey, real quick, I'm going to give all my closing information, and then after that, I want you to give all your pedigree information, website, everything else that you want people out there to be able to look up and find, which is, of course, on the Aquarian website, aquarianradio.com. But my name is Reverend John M. Polk. I'm a co-host, of course, to Janet Lessin. Her and her husband, Dr. Sasha Lessin, started Aquarian Radio back in, I think it was 2012, and have created an international following and have multiple shows Thursday through Sunday every week, with a few exceptions here and there. For example, Janet is going to be at the conference in Sacramento on the the 25th and the 26th of this month next week. But real quick,
yes,
my name is
weekend.
Reverend. Oh, there you are. Okay.
I'm back.
Well, real quick,
I'm back, yes.
my name is Reverend John M. Polk, co-host every Friday night here on Aquarian Radio. And I have a book entitled Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, which you can find by going to johnpolkmedia.com. It's JOHNPOLK media.com. And we got you back, Janet.
Yes, I'm back. And go ahead, Ed, you want to do your website and everything and how people can reach you? Then we'll conclude this episode.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in Sacramento next weekend. I think it's 24th and 25th, but whatever it is, this upcoming weekend, and going to be a great time down there, meet a lot of great people. But the way your listeners can get in touch with me, the bottom line is Ed Baker 2016. That's how you find me. You find me at edbaker2016.com for my website. On Twitter, the handle is edbaker2016. And also on Facebook, I've got a group page that is where I do the majority of my putting out videos and putting out information. Again, Ed Baker 2016. My email address is ed@edbaker2016.com. And because I always get a good phone call here and there when I do this, I want to throw out my phone number is 971-998-7354. That's my cell phone. You can call me anytime. I always appreciate any ideas, any comments, questions. I'm as serious as can be, and I want to make sure that I'm representing you. So give me a call and let me know what you think. Give me your ideas. Let me know how you can help if you're able to, either with a financial contribution or a contribution of your time. There's so many things that people can do to help. So thank you guys for helping me by having me on your show and introducing me to your audience. And one more time, edbaker2016.com.
Well, thank you, Ed. And that information is also on our website at aquarianradio.com, and we have a bio of Ed and the contact information in case you didn't write it down fast enough. You can just go to aquarianradio.com and do an internal search for Ed Baker, and that information will come up. I wanted to, before we conclude, we did ask the question of John Podesta, and John David Podesta is the chairman of the 2016 Hillary Clinton presidential campaign, and he served as chief of staff to Bill Clinton, and a counselor to President Barack Obama. And he's 66 years old. And, okay, that's the answer to that question. And then one more time, the conference coming up, the UFO-Con, the Experiencer event, is October 24th and 25th. Go on to the website at ufocon.com. There's also a link to ufocon2013.com. I'm not sure. I guess she's using an old site link for this conference, but please do register and purchase your ticket now. The event is happening in 7 days, 17 hours, and 8 minutes. So join us there. Let's countdown on the top there. And this has been your host, Janet Kira Lessin, and my co-host. Thank you, Reverend John Polk, for coming on the show every Friday, and I think we're doing a great job, and I look forward to more. We are going to be on hiatus next Friday because I will be enmeshed in a conference, but we will be back the following Friday, and we're going to report about the Experiencers Conference in Sacramento. And, Ed, I look forward to meeting you. Come over and give me a big hug and meet Sasha. And Sasha's the politician. They want to talk about issues. He's the little Mensa guy. He will talk about political stuff. He enjoys that. Yes. All right. Well, I think that's enough for today, and I really do appreciate everybody joining us here at Aquarian Radio. And I want to just end this show by saying much love and blessings and aloha.
Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.